Kendrick Lamar hasn't dropped in 5 years, but he's finally back with his new album, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. And in today's video, we're going to take you through everything we know about this new album, starting off with the most recent updates, including confirmed producers, features, the album date, and then moving into a complete timeline of everything we know about this rollout, and then talking about a potential single that might be released for this album and so much more. So stay tuned for the whole video. Let's start off with the album announcement that took place on April 18th, 2022, where Kendrick Lamar updated his Oklahoma.com website, adding a new black folder titled For Immediate Release, and in there he revealed that his album title will be Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, and he gave us the album date, which we've been fucking waiting for forever, and it's Friday, May 13th, 2022, and everybody's just like going crazy right now.
Absolutely. Like the whole play of the website was genius because you have access to the whole rollout through this website, and I think that website is actually going to be pretty important to Kendrick Lamar's career if this is the way it keeps going. But let's go into the Kendrick Lamar upcoming shows, because this was really an indication this year of what we were going to be getting, and we knew like, okay, he was a headliner at some serious festivals this year, so he was probably going to release something. So Kendrick Lamar will be performing as a headliner for the Glastonbury Festival in England on June 22nd, 2022. That same month, I think it's actually the next day, on June 23rd, Kendrick Lamar will be headlining a festival in Milan, Italy. We covered a whole video on that. And then on July 22nd, the next month, Kendrick Lamar will be headlining at Rolling Loud in Miami. And once he started, really releasing the dates of his shows and started to say like, okay, like I'm coming out and doing certain stuff.
We knew something was coming.
So how do you feel about all this so far? Like, do you think the way that he's been rolling out this year has been well calculated?
It's been genius because we know he's a crazy live performer, and I would do so much to be at one of these shows. So look out for those guys. They're going to be huge events. But let's now talk about the album features, because this is always a big conversation with Kendrick albums. And what's interesting is that we do have some names that are confirmed and some that are looking like they might be confirmed. Starting off with Thundercat, who did an interview with the Japanese fashion brand called Neat Tokyo on March 27th, 2020. And in that interview, he stated that he's been working with Kendrick Lamar a little bit on Kendrick's new album. And that's been pretty cool because we know what Thundercat was able to provide on To Pimp a Butterfly with his amazing bass lines, but we also know that Baby Keem is a very likely feature because he signed to Kendrick's PG Line label. He's his cousin. They collaborated on 3 songs in 2021, so that's almost a lock. What's also very interesting, and this one will have a lot of people kind of freaking out a bit, is that Kodak Black might be featured on this album, and you wouldn't expect that pairing, but it just might work. But this is where it comes from. So Kodak tweeted, "Y'all won't believe who I'm in the stew with right now. Well, both of us are goats, so." And that was on December 10th, 2021. What's interesting is that on December 10th, 2021, Kodak was in California for Rolling Loud. And we know that Kendrick resides in California. So people are putting the pieces together and speculating that Kodak might be on this album. Apart from that, Anderson .Paak has reposted the album announcement that has just dropped. So they collaborated on Tints off of Oxnard. Might be another West Coast collaboration there. And there's also been rumors of Prince and Andre 3000 being on this album. So how do you feel about those?
Listen, I just want to see what makes the album. And to be quite honest with you, out of all of these that you've just named, I think Baby Keem needs to be a lock. Thundercat needs to be a lock. And
3K, bro. We need the 3K
absolutely.
feature.
But what's interesting is that I think the only one that I'm really convinced on is the Pac one, because he's the only one that reposted the announcement. And then if you look at, let's say, Andre 3K and Prince, the Prince thing came from Dave Free in an interview where he was talking about laying down vocals for Complexion on To Pimp a Butterfly. And he said, well, maybe this, and he's like, oh,
he said maybe there's more verses that Prince has recorded for Kendrick material.
Well,
so
and we'll see what ends up
that
happening.
That would be amazing. That. And Andre 3000 said that he wanted to work with Kendrick last year. So that's a possibility.
It would be awesome additions.
He was supposed to be on Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe, so I'd love to see him, on a Kendrick record. But let's talk about the confirmed producers, because we already have a whole cast lined up of people that have reposted this announcement.
Okay, so I'll go through the producers for you guys, all right? So we have Boy Wonder, we have Cardo Got Wings, Soundwave, Terrence Martin, DJ Dahi, and The Alchemist. And those are all the producers that reposted Kendrick Lamar's album announcement. And it seems like everything's kind of going into a cryptic sort of mode right now where, you're trying to figure out, who's a part of what and who's putting what into what. I think that's kind of where I'm at right now. And just based off of those producers that we just read, you could expect a beautiful soundscape. And if that would be, the main producers honing in. I don't think it's going to be only them. I am definitely interested
This
in
this
that.
sells me just off of that. I mean, if we can get
Absolutely.
another crazy sample flip from The Alchemist on a song like Fear, or some nice jazz compositions from Terrace Martin, I would absolutely fucking love that. But let's now go into the actual timeline of this rollout, because it dates all the way back to 2020, starting off when we got word from a Billboard writer by the name of Bill Word, who said that Kendrick Lamar's album is nearly done and that it's rock influenced. And nothing really ever came out of that. We didn't get more context on if it will be rock influenced, so we'll have to see if that pans out. But moving on to March of 2020, Kendrick Lamar launches PG Lang and posts on his social media, and this was right around the time the pandemic started, and people believe that him announcing PG Lang was a start of his new album rollout. And we had him deleting his Instagram, we had him putting up a promotional video for PG Lang, saying that Baby Keem, Georgia Smith, and Dave Free would be part of the collective. And again, we don't know if there's going to be anything to do with PG Lang. I mean, we do know that this is labeled as his final record for TDE, so we'll have to see what the involvement is from PG Lang. But speaking of 2020, let's go on to September of 2020, where he was actually spotted shooting a music video in LA. And I don't know if you remember the pictures, but it was pretty cool because he was talking on this phone booth and he was kind of, wearing these worn out clothes. And after that, we also got footage of him shooting a video on a beach somewhere, dangling from this crane. And he was kind of hovering over the water, and it kind of reminded you of the music video for the All Right video. So cool to see if that's going to pan out and become a video for the new album. But take me through Kendrick's message, which came in August.
Absolutely. So this was massive too, because I think that when you go back to the New Thoughts website and you look at the first file that ever dropped, there was that New Thoughts folder, and everyone was wondering, like, okay, like, how was this going to be, playing into effect into his album rollout, and like, was this going to be the main vessel for all the messages that were going to be, passed on to Kendrick Lamar? And basically throughout that whole message, he had stated that this would be his final album with Top Dog Entertainment, confirming that. And he also did say that, he was taking time to reflect on certain things. He said he was away from his phone for a couple of months, and he was really trying to craft different types of music, and how he was trying to also get into like lowriding collections and stuff like that. So it's also cool to see what type of headspace he was in, and where he was creating. And that was nice for me as a fan, seeing that transition, because now automatically I pre-assumed like, okay, like everything's going to be going through this. And if you go back to the original message that was posted yesterday, I believe at the time of this recording, saying that all real information will be posted here, like this is the only reliable source. That's genius, because now where to go get all of this news, and where to go find it.
And he signed off the letter Oklahoma, so we'll speak more on that later, but that was interesting too. So what ended up following that came in 2021 on August 27th, where Kendrick had his fucking comeback on Family Ties, put the entire industry on blast, said how everyone should burn their hard drives because when he comes, he's going to shake up the game. And that was that Heart Part 4 energy that we wanted. He was being brutal lyrically, and it was amazing to witness. And he was also featured on 2 other songs from Baby Keem's The Melodic Blue, which were Range Brothers and Vent. And what was interesting about the Family Ties video is that, again, it said starring Oklahoma instead of starring Kendrick Lamar. So once again, he's pointing towards this character, which might be an alter ego that takes direction on the album. But speaking of that album direction, I want to go back to this interview that he did with Baby Keem on ID Magazine in October of 2020.
Fantastic article.
Yeah, where he said how he was taking so long to drop this album because with every album, he wants to execute on a new sound, and he said he'll never make a Good Kid, Mad City Part 2. And I loved hearing that because I always want a new experience from Kendrick.
Oh, well, listen, I think that when you got to look at it really, like, you have to understand he's in a new creative zone, and like he's going to be doing something new, and you heard it straight away from the Baby Keem features. I mean, like, his performances on the Melodic Blue were similar in the type of competition that he was bringing back and the types of verses that he was spitting, but they had a different sort of aura to them now. It was more out there, was more quirky. Like, it seemed like he was also trying to get into a different comedic vibe, and I don't know how that's going to transpire onto the album and if he's going to replicate that sound, because the Melodic Blue did drop last September, so there has been time since that release.
So what do you think it will sound like?
I think it's going to sound, really competitive from Kendrick. I think he's going to be trying out different styles, but I think something that you could expect from Kendrick in every single album is the quality of the writing, like all of the writing devices that are really implemented within his poems, because, dude, like, he's literally a poet, that's another thing. thing is that you're going to see the way he's going to articulate himself. You're going to see the way that he's going to be able to, build these sort of environments around them to make you better understand certain situation and mindsets that he's currently in. I love his creative genius when entering an album, because you need to go back and you really need to unpeel the layers of an album to truly understand his vision throughout the project. And I've been saying this about Kendrick albums, how you'll find themes of politics, about religion, about self-growth, about entrepreneurship, about so many different types of subject matters, compacted into very small verses, and verses that also never have fillers. So that's where I think he's going to go with the album.
There's always so much substance with a Kendrick album, and what's interesting is that I feel like he might be tackling a 1970s soul soundscape with this album.
That's
because
a good theory, actually.
On Family Ties, he raps, "I come from the 70, the Al Green offspring, guns and the melody." And what's also interesting is that when you look at the album title, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, that sounds like the name of an old 60s or 70s soul group. For example, like Gladys Knight and the Pips, or Kool and the Gang, KC and the Sunshine Band. There's kind of a recurring theme.
How would you like about that? Because we've seen different artists tackle that sort of direction before. Example, The Weeknd with Dawn FM and After Hours, where they're presenting you sort of a more of a vintage sound, and they're bringing their own modern twist to it. Silk Sonic did it with, their new album that dropped last December. So do you think that this would be a great transition in Kendrick's career to maybe revive some old productions of funk and jazz and even blues that we were hearing that were super prominent within the 60s and 70s?
Absolutely. Because he's killed, so many soul samples, and he's done a great job of just bringing these compositions that are rich with electric guitar chords, horn sections. So I'm down for that. But what I really want direction-wise from this album is a concept record, like his 3 last albums have been. And I want to see him finally tackle that alter ego and devote the entire album to Oklama or Mr. Morale, whatever character he wants, and have an album where it's conceptually rich and there's great sequencing. So we'll have to see what ends up happening. But let's speak about just, what we could expect now that we've gotten this announcement, because if you look back at the Damn rollout, we got a single, which was Humble, I believe 2 weeks before Damn came out. So do you think he follows that pattern and drops another single? Will it be The Hard Part 5? Where's your head at on that?
Well, we just spoke about this with our community, and I was saying that I really do think he will be dropping a single, because if he wasn't, maybe he would just make the announcement the week before to get it as fresh as possible. So he has 4 weeks to play with technically at this point. Like, he has a good amount of time to be able to roll out this album, and I think he will take time with a single, because he always does have singles to his albums. It's always been a big part of the way he rolls out his albums, and it gives the fans so much hunger and anticipation to go into the album that, like, you're whoa, okay, this is really different, and this is going to be fucking fantastic. So I think that's what's so cool about it. But we'll have to see, man. Like, I'm in a zone right now where there's so much suspense around this rollout that, like, anything could spawn at a certain point, right? Like, you don't know what's going to be happening, and
he'll keep updating that site, bro. That's what
I think what's going to happen is he might drop the track list on that site. That's a possibility.
The album cover,
that might be a
little
possibility.
Tidbits of the album.
Exactly.
It's going to be a fucking beautiful journey to witness, because with every Kendrick album, there's always this mystique. There's always this aura of the unknown, and I think that's what he's going to bring again with this album.
And I think what's also so exciting is that now, like, you have an official vessel to go get all of this news. Like, you go to that domain name, you have everything you need. It's maybe not much at the moment because there's just only 2 statements out there, but for now, it's all you need, because we finally do have a date, guys. And, we're going to be doing a huge live album reaction once this new Kendrick Lamar album drops. You better believe it. It's going to be a massive event this year, and we go into live album reactions with our whole community, full-blown live
on
stream
Patreon,
where you guys are going to be able to come through and bump the albums with us. So if you guys want to access that, link in the description. We're going to make that happen on May 13th for you guys. So thank you so much for watching this video, and we'll catch you on the next one.